Hey everybody, Glenn from Third Millennium. We're continuing part 2 on our new stereo system install for our 2012 Miata. And what we're going to do right now is going to do some wiring on the bench. And this is primarily soldering a job, although you can also do this with crimping if you've got a good crimper and the proper quality crimps. We think soldering is really the way to do this. And in fact, if you're not familiar with soldering, want to learn a little bit more about that, we do have a video. I'll leave a link here on this channel for you, which would show you exactly what you need to do the soldering for something like this. We even sell a basic soldering iron and the correct solder for automotive use. So check that out if you want to get into it. We're not going to spend all of the time. This is going to take a fair amount of time to do all of these connectors, but we're going to tell you about the strategy for how we would approach this. We have the wiring adapter that plugs into the vehicle's plug. We have our bypass for that reverse switch. We have the amp connectors here. One of these is for speaker inputs, one is for RCA inputs. That's the one we're going to use, so we won't need the speaker inputs, so we can set that aside. Then we've got, from the actual head unit itself, we've got the connector for that from the Pioneer unit, and then we've got for the steering wheel controls as well. As a strategy, there's a lot of wires here. It can look a little bit overwhelming. The way to approach this is to work with the devices that you have one at a time. For example, on the vehicle harness, the color codes are on the back here for how they interface to the vehicle. So for example here, we're going to be using the amp to run the right front speakers. That means that these are going to go directly to the amplifier harness. The rears are going to go directly to the radio. So the way to approach this is just one at a time. Work through the connectors, making the connections to the other harnesses that you're working with, making sure we're going to put heat shrink over each of these as we do them. If you don't do that, get some good electrical tape and use that for covering after you've done your soldering. So basically just go through all of these, checking them off as you do them, and then going ahead and insulating any of these that you don't use. And then for the other connections that we have here, they're going to give you a lot of extra wire on some of these. So for example, on the amplifier, they give you all of this, it's probably 3 feet, to connect to the speakers and to the amplifier power and so forth. Obviously, if the amplifier is going to be close to where the radio is going to be, you don't need too much of this. Now, one caution, don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to put it right next to the radio when you haven't actually scoped it out yet to see if that's possible. It may have to be offset a little bit under that dash area someplace. Keep in mind, these are all speaker level outputs, so the distance really doesn't matter too much here. If you end up with some extra wire after you get your installation done, you can simply fold up the extra wire, tie it off, and then tie this bundle into an existing bundle so you don't get any rattling around. But you don't want to run the risk of cutting these off in advance because you don't think you're going to need it and then later finding out that you do. RCA is different. You want to keep these as short as possible, but we're going to run from here to the radio with an RCA to an RCA cable, which isn't usually included in the kits. So you may need to pick up one of those. And again, we're only doing this for one channel, so we're only going to use a pair of these for the amplifier. And then for the access controller, there's really only 3 wires. The way that access works, as you saw when we did the firmware, you can actually download software for updating the device, and then you can also get what they call the vehicle-specific instructions, which identifies exactly what vehicle you have and what you need to do. And in this case, we're going to need to attach the black wire and pin 1P of the vehicle radio harness to a chassis ground, red wire to power, and then the white-green wire again to the vehicle radio harness. So we're going to pick those up off of our Metra adapter that we had, and in fact those are those two, the blue with white and the blue wires right there.
Alright, got our axis steering wheel control here, and first thing we're going to do with this is we're going to actually update it. The module that comes with this has a USB port on it and allows us to get the latest firmware and updates for the product installed. There's a little axis cover here. I already had it pulled off. You can see the USB jack like that. And then we'll go ahead and get the axis software started. Alright, and yeah, just a note on this, you do need to actually run this as administrator on your PC for it to work properly. First thing, we'll check and see if there is a firmware update available. Alright, already got the latest version, that's great. Main menu, terms of configuration. You can have this do an automatic or manual. We're actually going to be doing a Pioneer, and I'm going to write that to the system. Alright, good enough.